Before you watch this episode, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
First question is a very signature question, but a simple one. How are you really doing?
I'm a very lucky person. I love my work. I have 3 great kids. I get to learn interesting new things. I get to see progress in the world, so I'm doing well.
Okay, this question is a question I have, but I think a lot of people have. After Microsoft, in many aspects, a lot of people will see you very successful in different avenues. One of them, of course, is the financial terms, not only millions, but billions. So people will say, you know, Bill is set for life. He can just relax and chill. But when I look at you and I'm like, okay, why is he dedicating so much of his life, so much of his time to philanthropy, to climate change? So in a nutshell, I would love to know the why when a lot of people are thinking he could just be relaxing, you know?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I control my schedule, and the things I choose to do are where I'm working with brilliant people to innovate. And post-Microsoft, the goal of that is to help people out, to save children's lives, to make sure climate change doesn't negatively affect the poorest and hold them back from achieving their full potential. And so getting involved with innovation, you know, that was my career at Microsoft. Now in areas like health and climate, I'm using those same skills, but I'm meeting new people, learning new things. So I love my work, clearly, because it's volunteer work.
You know, it's nice when I look at people and when they talk about something they love, you could literally see even their face, how they change or they suddenly get excited. So I like hearing that. And I think to have, it's an interesting jump from, you know, Microsoft to philanthropy, but I think there's an underlying DNA of maybe problem solving or helping people, right?
That's right. You know, the world has come a long ways since 200 years ago, and there's, you know, certain types of advances, and, you know, we need to make sure those are shared equally. We need to make sure the side effects of some of that, like climate change, don't cause extreme damage. But, you know, for example, I learned about vaccines, and I thought, wow, isn't the world putting more into that? And so that's post-Microsoft, a lot of my work has been on inventing new vaccines and getting them out to all the children in the world.
Mm-hmm. I was talking also with your team about something so interesting, and it was about how certain products, I won't mention names for marketing reasons, but they are and I read a whole article about this, and how they can reach extremely rural areas to sell their beverages or products, right? And there was a whole comparison at why philanthropic work don't learn from these beverages on how they reach the most rural. Like, you could go to the most rural, and probably you have, and you would see and you're like, oh, how did this reach this little market here? So it was a whole case study on how philanthropy can learn from that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the private sector doesn't understand, you know, how to solve diarrhea or you know, how to create new bed nets, but there are aspects like logistics and planning systems. And so if you look at the staff in the Gates Foundation, the majority of them would have worked in the private sector. And then, you know, we have incredible partnerships, people like Coca-Cola who do logistics. We look and say, okay, adapted to our work, which is vaccines that you can't let them get warm at all. You know, Coke, it can get warm and then you can cool it back down, but a vaccine gets destroyed. So it's a little more complicated, but you know, we learn from whoever we can.
Okay, so from all of your travels, your experiences, your philanthropic work, what is one experience or story that has really impacted you in your life?
Well, when you go to these community hospitals during a malaria season, early on, they were just filled with kids, and sadly, at that time, malaria was killing 1 million children a year. To go back 5 years later, when we'd gotten bed nets out in that community and see that, okay, there were 20% as many kids in there, that's a sense of, wow, that's wild. We had that meeting, we wrote that check, and here it is. It actually got, and the mothers that don't have dying children, that's, kind of a miracle, something that, I felt a lot of gratification that we'd put the pieces together.
So do sometimes when you're in these experiences, like something would really hit you or make you feel, okay, I'm enjoying this, I'm enjoying seeing something better, or I really can't handle seeing this, so I need to do something about it?
Well, when you hear a number like, 10 million children were dying, that was just mind-blowing to me that in that case there was a vaccine for diarrhea, it's called rotavirus, that the rich kids were getting, but the kids who were really at risk of dying of rotavirus weren't getting. So I thought, hey, capitalism has taken us a long way, but there are gaps where it doesn't always orchestrate resources to treat lives as having human equal value. And so, that kind of stunned me, and I thought, okay, what do we need to do to put on top of that? How do we get governments? How do we get philanthropy? And so it's striking that we're a very rich world, and yet some of these basic things we're not as good as we should be.
And what has your mother's impact been on your life and your journey? I believe her name is Mary.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to overstate how your parents kind of set your framework for viewing the world. My mom was very philanthropic, both with her time and giving things. There's a thing called United Way in the U.S. that she ran the local United Way. Both she and my dad really set a great example of how they're involved in the community. They got me to understand certain political causes that they were very energized by. And when I started to be successful, my mom was certainly pushing that, okay, now is it time for you to give back in some ways. And I'm sorry she can't see where that's developed.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how our early years, there's this theory that the first 8 years of your life determine the next 30 or more. And a lot of our foundations sometimes, or what drives us, can come back from just watching your parents or something they said. So it's nice. And you said your father also had an impact.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, when I was still full-time at Microsoft, my dad actually helped get the foundation going because I knew I only was part-time. And so in the year 2000, when it became the world's biggest foundation, my dad and a executive from Microsoft were co-chairs. And it was not till 8 years later that I retired from Microsoft and went to the foundation full-time.
Okay, Bill. What is it like being a grandfather?
Well, it's exciting. My first grandchild is a girl. She's just turned 10 months old. A little bit of crawling, a little bit of, dada, mama. So, I'm very excited to see her grow up. I'm lucky I get to travel and see my daughter and granddaughter a great deal.
In Arabic, Bill, we have a saying. It says, "Azm al-walad wild al-walad," which means more dear than the child is my child's child. So sometimes, grandparents have that soft spot for the granddaughter or grandson.
No, definitely, it's a different relationship. You're not the one who has to, enforce the rules quite like the parents do. So you can play a different role and take them on trips, expose them to your passions, and it re-energizes you to see how they're learning things, how they see things differently.
Okay, so I know that you're an avid reader. If I'm not mistaken, you finish around 50 books a year. And when people will bring you up in a conversation, I don't know you personally, but I always see you as this forevermore student of life. Like you always want more knowledge. So is it fair to say that the student of life claim that I usually give about you, is it an accurate one?
Oh, definitely. When I was a student, I loved learning, and I've never lost that. Whether it's learning about tuberculosis or how do we get rid of climate emissions. I get to meet these amazing scientists. If I ever get confused, I can send email to people I know, hey, how does this really work? Now with all these online courses, whether it's history of the Quran or the Bible, I get a kick out of being taught.
It's a nice mindset, because some people, I don't know, it's there, I guess, two directions. One direction is the more I learn, the more I'm full of myself and arrogant, and some people are like that. Some people, the more they learn, they realize they don't know anything. And they're like, okay, I really need to learn more. And it's this hunger for knowledge. And when I read that, okay, 50 books, okay, that's a lot. So the why is because you feel, why do you read is because you always want to enrich yourself?
Well, there's great books. Unless you really love sitting there reading the book, you probably won't do it. It's not, it's not like I painfully force myself to do it. There are authors like Václav Smil who have this wonderful way of explaining things. And the more you learn, it all kind of fits together. It's easier when you have a framework of knowledge that you're just having, okay, that's how we figured out the very first vaccine and the second vaccine, and some worked and some didn't. And, the history of science I always love, because that's, you can see how do we uncover, what we know, and how do we use that then for benefit. But yeah, I think, staying curious and having people around you who help educate you, I highly recommend it.
Okay, last two. If you could, what is the most, if you could teach children around the world or the youth that are coming up, just one lesson that's so important for human beings, for people growing up, what is something that you think every child or youth should at least know?
Well, understanding that the world has gotten better, and so feeling good about that, but also being impatient that there are these deep inequities. One of my favorite authors, Hans Rosling, wrote about this, that by looking at how far we've come, that helps guide us, to where we need to go. We're living longer, we're more literate, we're more nourished. The great fears for the future would be, can we, get along together? Do we view our clan, our tribe, our nation as, more important than others in a way that drives, wars? The worst human behavior will, as we come together to solve climate, as we come to improve these tools for health and make sure we can be well fed. Are humans working together or not? And this next generation has to do a better job on some of the things that the polarization, the misinformation, and so we haven't handed them a perfect world, but there's a lot of good things they can see that were done in the past.
Final question is, Bill in one word.
I mean, I'm a student.
So my assumption is actually good. You are a student.
Sure.
I love that. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Good to see you.